You mentioned a very good point when you talk about structure and so on,
Hierarchy.
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 Um, we were talking about it earlier that the term masculinity in itself, right? If you think about what the show is ultimately trying to do in terms of the conversations around where's my masculinity and all of that kind of stuff, in the context, yeah, of that rite of passage, do you think a question like where's my masculinity is a relevant one to ask to that rite of passage and how it's sort of like been determined? Or do you think that rite of passage in itself gives at least Xhosa men the answer to that question of what it means to be a man, how to behave in society, and.
So your channel has always fascinated me that where is my masculinity as compared to what is, because masculinity is a what, it's a group of qualities and attributes, what it is. So where it is, I don't know if I can answer that question where it is, but to say what it is, masculinity says this is what it takes to be a male, not a man, a male.
Got you.
Correct? Now, it gives you all these options. What do I pick out of those options? I don't have to pick all of them. What do I pick? I can say, I'm going to be a soft guy who cries,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna be buff.
Yeah.
Buff, and no one messes with me. So I've picked the strength part of it. I've said that's my masculinity. Because I've got that in position, I can be soft. You can see me at the club crying. No one's going to mess with you. I'm still a man, right? I'm still a male. I can choose to say, I'm the provider. I've got lots of money. I'm the provider. Everything else is secondary. So, what it is, out of the list available, we don't have to subscribe to all. What do I want? How do I want to define it? I can say I want to be the provider, to be the protector, and to be this. And that's what it is for me. Toba, I'm not sure about you.
Ubona njani Tony?
Might be a little bit going a bit aside the point. Okay, I grew up in Eastern Cape where a man is defined. There are boundaries where, as I am growing, kuthiwa kum indoda firstly xa sihleli sikinyama asuzoyityana kanjani. There's isithebe, which is a tray yamakhwenkwe, and then eyabafana eyotata, then eyomama, right? Now, for you to belong to eyabafana, you must have gone through that stage, right? Then on to becoming Leo Data, right? I'm coming from that background. Kuthiwa kum, when I'm in the Eastern Cape, when I'm at home, ndingumfana ngoku, and this is what is expected of me. I take all that with me ndihambe ndiye Cape Town, ndiye Joburg. None of that is applicable when I'm here in Joburg. Absolutely zero. To the point that when I'm going back to Eastern Cape, funeka ndikhumbule what it means to be a man in Eastern Cape, Mount Frecklansekai. Becomes very interesting for my wife to watch. Unborn here, unborn at that side. It becomes very distinct and very clear because ubona these two different individuals. Where I'm going to is where I learned ukuba yindoda, and where I am namhlanje, that didn't prepare me for today. Instead, circumstances. That's why I was saying Yanela, that we learn ekhaya, how do we then put that into practice in the working environment where we belong anyway? And iboni, I don't see the link, right? In fact, ayikho, it doesn't exist, I can tell you.
Hence, my question is, do we have to? I'm not sure if, yeah.
Do we have
The question is, what we learned, do we have to apply it here? You see, no. Listen, hear me out. Hear me out. I'm saying the context of it there was meant for it there, right? You can choose to take, once you are in here, you've observed this new world, the greater society, as you say. I've observed it. I'm like, okay, you know what? Navigating that part, perhaps I could rely on some of my of my learnings from back at home. I'm here in Gauteng now, and I say, okay, you know what? This is hierarchy. What's the best way for me to easily navigate it? I can go back to what I've been taught and say, I've been taught to navigate hierarchy in this manner. But I'm saying I don't have to take that lesson. When I cross out of Eastern Cape, I can say, you are done. Eastern Cape, stay behind. I can go now and learn the Zulu, the Venda, the Tsonga, because that's who I'm going to be dealing with. So, Tuba, that's why I think I was saying, do you have to? Because you're saying, how do we do it? I'm saying, do you have to do it? I think that's where I'm going. Do you have to? Can't you leave it alone to say, this is for this world? In this world, I will learn a new world. I will qualify. I will get through high school. I will get through tertiary. I will get through the jobs, right? Because that's the journey for this world.
And in your journey, do you feel what helped you then adapt was the fact that you left it behind? So you mentioned you went to school in KZN, right? You're in corporate and stuff. Is it that through your own journey you've discovered, okay, fine, there's certain context or certain situations where that particular what I learned is no longer applicable. I need to like switch off. I'm no longer a Mount Frere, and I need to adapt to something else.
No, I think for me it was exactly that. I think that was the conscious decision I made to say, Eastern Cape is Eastern Cape. Outside Eastern Cape, wherever it may be, is outside Eastern Cape. Some areas you might find similarities, like we did probably in Cape Town when we were in Cape Town. But why would I go into a new place and want it to work for a different place?
Okay. This is where it gets challenging from Nayanelane. Similarities are both of us, we've got boys.
Yeah.
We are grooming them to be men, right? We are coming from Eastern Cape, the one that we just described, Ngugune. To take it further, mna nawe sikhuliswe ngoma. I didn't ever dead, you didn't ever dead. We became men the way we are namhlanje. That's all in the Eastern Cape. We got to be where we are today. We've got sons. Whereas when Wako is about to become a teenager, what are you... No, not what are you teaching them, because it's going to sound wrong, but from now onwards, what type of men are you expecting of him? And what type of manhood are you driving him towards, if any? Yeah, well?
Let me answer that. It's always a very interesting one. So,
Yeah.
what type of man do I want my son to be? I think we've had this a couple of times. I'm not actually trying to get him to be a man. I'm trying to get him to be the best person he can be. And the reason for it, like you said, I was raised by a female who was the mother, the provider. So she had both the feminine and the masculine in her, in her roles. So she raised me to be the person. She couldn't teach me to be a man. But she fairly couldn't teach me to be a woman either. So she taught me to be a person. And with my son, the truth is, I am not desiring him to be a man, to be the best person he can be. Right? So if he can get that, he can then choose if he wants to put male into his identity. Honestly, I have no desire to teach my son to be a man. I have no desire for it. Not because I am lazy. I am saying, be a person. Take the attributes of a person. Forget the gender parts of a person. Just get the person to have the attributes of a person. As to what they choose to do then later on, it will be up to them. I will be failing my son to force him to be a male because I'm gonna teach him based on my experiences. But I feel as a person,
Give me the mic. Give me the mic.
Wow. Wow. Ngasihlele sibayeni and we're busy debating kushota inyama nje.
Yeah, we should have had something. As far as we know, humanity, we've got two sexes. Let's be clear, right? And then how we were brought up is the one or inkwenkwe, or intomazana. There's a reason why we have got those two. And yes, umntwana xa izalwa, it will be one of the two. We never or hardly would have a situation where we're not sure. There's a reason behind that. I'm not the one to provide the reason, but there's a reason behind that. I do believe ukuba I've got a responsibility to take umntwana wam through the stages of life. Okay? I'm not the expert in it, but I just believe ukuba this boy was born as a boy, right? Funeke ekhulile, and there's a certain expectation in life, not only in society but in life general, ukuba as a boy, this is how you should be, this is how you should behave as well. I don't have the blueprint for Leo Indo, but it's purely will be based on how I know and what I know. That's what I'll pass on. Before I give you, what I do not wish for is to bring what I could now term as confusion to him. He's a boy. Let's be clear that he is a boy. I saw him being born. He was a boy when he was born. He is a boy as he grows up. What he then becomes as he grows, it's beyond my control, right? But I can only manage what I see in front of me. Okay. And therefore maybe I've got some role to play as his dad.
And before we bring it back, I think it probably touches to the point of I guess what Utulani was initially driving at about, for the next generation, right? Aren't we always then subject to passing on, ultimately, if I can, for lack of a better word, the template that we got, right? And we will tweak here and there based on our own lived experiences and stuff, but I guess we'll make allowance for the fact that, fine, the world that Uluhle is growing up in is a different world than yours, but certain principles will remain the same as far as you're concerned in terms of what your lived experience is. Which is why I was asking the question about this whole thing of, does it serve a greater good if you then switch off what you were raised in and then switch on in different contexts and all of that kind of stuff? Because that's, in my mind, part of where all these biases and stuff come from.